So let's just get straight into the slides since you've seen my contact details. I'm John Mccormack and talking for 10 minutes today on 7 ways for data teams to save money in Azure. So the things that we're going to look at are reviewing your backup retention policy. Make sure that your resources are right-sized. So specifically, I'm talking about SQL DB's managed instances and SQL VMs, but it extends beyond that as well. Tune your queries because you can save money by doing that too. Turn your non-production instances off out of hours. Consider, when the time is right, moving to Azure SQL DB Serverless. We'll have a look at reserved instances as well and how they can save you money if you're going to be using the same things for a long time. And also talk about deleting unused instances. So the first thing is review your backup retention policy. Now this slide is specific to people who are running SQL Server on VMs, so IaaS, or also people who are running SQL Server on premises, but you're using the backup to URL function. Okay, because those backups go to a blob storage account in Azure. So what's the problem? Storage itself doesn't seem that expensive when you first look at it. It's not, it's not a huge ticket item. But if you have, say, databases that are in a full recovery method, and you're taking something like transaction log backups every 10 minutes, and you're running these databases for years and years, then what happens is all those sort of 6 backups per hour just they really accumulate to a very large size, and that's something that I have seen with a customer where they just had about 4 or 5 years of all the backups. So what you really need is you need to decide what you need. You might need 1 month of all your transaction log backups. You might need 1 to 3 months of daily full backups or differentials, and you might need maybe up to 7 years of maybe a weekly full backup, just so that you've got that there. But if you set up that policy in place, then it means that you're only retaining what you need to, and the savings, especially if it's not something that you've done before, can be quite massive. So how to do it? First of all, the easy way is the storage lifecycle management. You can set and define a series of rules that will kind of scan your blob storage for, look at the age of the items that are in it and the file extensions, and based on what you decide, you can sort of manage the life cycle of those items and get them deleted when they're no longer needed. There's also a fairly new service, the SQL Server IaaS agent extension. That means that although you're running SQL Server on VMs, a bit like a PaaS product, they actually take care of some of the stuff for you, including backups, and you can define your rules there as well to ensure you're not keeping too much. And finally, if you need to be really specific or granular about what you're doing, then you can roll your own solution. Again, that's something that I've had to do, and the way that I would do that is using something like automation runbooks along with a PowerShell script to just go into your storage account and pick out what you need and what you don't. So also very important is make sure that you right size your resources. So the cloud has a lot of words around it, like it's scalable or elastic. Really what it means is that you should be buying for what you need now, not for what you need in the future. So it was the case in the past, and possibly still in the present for people who are doing a lot of on-prem work, is that you would buy a server based on your current needs and projected future needs for a good few years. And sometimes you got the growth you expected, sometimes you didn't, but it was always a little bit of a guesstimate. Well, the cloud tries to spin that on its head, and you move more to an operational expenditure point of view. So you're paying for things as you need them, and as such, there's no point in over-resourcing and over-utilizing. So have a look at what you're running right now, and look at the Azure Monitor and various alerts to make sure that you're not over-resourced. If you are massively over-resourced, like if you have just a few % running on some of your CPUs or DTUs, then it's usually safe and effective to scale down. The main thing is you just need to make sure that the tier that you're scaling to still has everything you need, because some of the cheaper tiers don't have things like scale-out replicas or column store indexes, for example. So as long as everything's still included, but it's just a little bit less compute resource, it's usually safe and effective to scale down. And you can always scale back up when the time comes, but not before. Don't be handing over more money than you need to before the time comes. If you are running SQL Server on VMs, then it's a real key tip to run your temp DB on the D drive on Windows machines, because the D drive is ephemeral storage. It comes with the machine. It doesn't cost anything extra, but it also has the best performance and lowest latencies. So if you have your temp DB on there for the best performance, it also means that any other storage volumes that you're paying separately for are free for all your other system and user databases. Tune your queries. If you tune your queries in the cloud, you can save money instantly. So if you have some queries that are just chewing up most of your resources all the time, then making a big improvement to those actually can change instantly the amount of resource that you're going to need. So how do you find out what you need to tune? Well, first thing is you can look at the Azure portal. That's step one. It's got an intelligent performance side of things. This is specific to SQL DB that I'm talking about here. And that's going to let you know your most expensive queries. You can also use Query Store and get the information you need there based on your most sort of expensive consuming queries that are there. Or you may also want to just use some open source scripts to pull the information you need that's stored in SQL Server to find out whether it's your highest memory or CPU or longest duration running queries or most reads. Just pull out the things that you want to tune, and there's loads of ways to get that data out of your instance. So turn your non-prod instances off out of hours, but that's not always the case. It might be something that you need to run. I'm thinking more specifically here like developer machines, things that someone may be working on for 8 hours a day, Monday to Friday, which is 40 hours per week. But if you just spin it up and leave it and forget about it, then it's online for 168 hours a week. So things like a virtual machine, if you stop that, and you have to do it using the portal or the CLI or PowerShell, one of these methods that makes sure that your virtual machine is deallocated, then you're no longer paying for any compute resources during the time that the resource is deallocated. You'll still pay for any attached storage, but that's usually a fraction of the cost compared to running the machine for 168 hours. And of course, you can ask people to do this manually day by day, but that's not going to work. It's usually best to automate it. And the best way to do that is through tagging the instances with a specific tag for when the machine should be on and off, and using the automation runbooks to actually just scan through your Azure estate and turn on and off things based on when they should be turned on and off. Okay, so consider moving to Azure SQL DB Serverless. Now, this isn't suitable for all databases that you're running on Azure SQL DB, but it is suitable for some. So if you have a really sort of steady workload, then I would recommend not doing something like this, because the sort of per second cost probably does work out a bit higher. But if you have very infrequent or erratic workloads, or maybe a workload that you see surges from time to time, then Azure SQL DB Serverless could save you a lot. Because again, like the VMs, when it's paused, you don't pay for your compute resource. You can set it to auto pause anything between 1 hour and 7 days. And also, if you can also set it to auto scale. So if you do have those busy periods where there's a bit of boost on activity, then it can automatically scale up and then scale back down for you. The main thing with this is just make sure you've got some retry logic in your application. Otherwise, the first connection after the pause will fail. Reserved instances. So reserved instances are a way to save money if you know you're going to be using something for a period of at least 1 to 3 years. So there's all the sort of SQL products I've mentioned, but there's also various other things too that you can save money on. You can save 72% on VMs, 33% on SQL database and whatnot, but you'll find all the information on the Azure portal. But that's a really good way to save money if you know you're going to be running an instance for a long time. And the last thing is delete your unused instances. Regularly review your estate for things that maybe people have spun up and not got rid of. You can also challenge people about the size or tier that they're running, or does it need to be online all the time? A good way to manage this is to make sure that you enforce tagging of any resources that get spun up on your Azure estate. And then you know who if you have an owner tag, you know who you can go to straight away, rather than trying to work out who runs this and what would happen if I turned it off. Okay, so that's us. That's all the 7 points, and there's more details on my webpage as well. Thank you.